Well, hello. I'm Nan Simonson. I welcome you to my Facebook Live. We were meeting at 10 o'clock on Thursdays. That's Pacific Standard Time, Pacific Daylight Time right now. And I've changed it to Tuesday at 1:30. And if you are on or if you're going to be joining me, welcome. And a lot of people join after the live broadcast. Today's subject was set this morning, different than what I planned, at, oh gosh, probably 3:40 in the morning. I had an interesting night, and I thought, if I'm not the only one that has issues like this, we might as well talk about it, because that's kind of what I do as I move forward with my mission, the mission that was stated in my book, Aging Powerfully. This channel is Aging Powerfully with Nan, and you are the Power Agers. And my mission has been to help people see that through our own power and taking control of our lives and focusing on the things that will make a difference. And for me, with my training in lifestyle medicine as a lifestyle medicine and health coach, I focus on the pillars of lifestyle medicine. Well, one of them is resilience, and resilience is sleep as well as stress release and relief. And although I am probably 80% invested out of those four pillars in the pillar of nutrition, it's not what I'm going to talk about today. And another one is community. I'm not talking about that today. And another one is movement. I'm not really talking about that one today. So let me get started. And this is personal. And whoops. And I hope I'm not sorry about it. If you ever jumped into something and thought, oh gosh, I hope I'm not sorry about this. Actually, when Aging Powerfully went in for printing, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've just put out there so much personal information. What was I thinking? And I wondered, gosh, is this a big mistake? And actually that was now, well, it was December 27th that the book was published. And I'm not sorry about it, but it changed a lot, because everything I am in know, or most of what I am in know, became sort of public knowledge. Well, so this is kind of a recounting of my last, 24 hours. I don't know if that's the case. Last night, I was awake, looked at the clock. It was a little after 2 o'clock, and I had been trying to sleep for quite a while, couldn't get back to sleep. I woke up, couldn't get back to sleep, and my head was whirling. It was, head was spinning, mind was whirling, and it was almost, I almost felt manic. And when I put together what I was thinking about to almost label it, what I realized was that I was deep into a narrative of what I couldn't do, of how I wasn't good enough, of all the things that I did wrong. And I don't know, I was going to say, I don't know where that came from, because I thought that I wasn't subject to that anymore. If you've read Aging Powerfully, you'll know a little bit about my past, and I was subject to that from the outside as well as from the inside early on, really early on. but I thought I was beyond that. And I know it happened. Um, I spent the weekend doing things that are difficult for me. I spent the weekend putting together some videos, cooking shows, and coordinating it with the recipes and coordinating it with the photos and putting it into YouTube in a different way, so that it wasn't public, because I'm doing a cooking class and those will be used for the cooking class, for the clinic that I work with. Doesn't matter all the details, but it was hard. I wasn't doing it right. I was involving my assistant, sweet Amy. Amy Olson is my art director and assistant. She's the one that created the look of this. I had a photographer, but Amy is the one that designed the book, and all of the thumbnails that you see in my YouTube, they're all done by Amy. I'm constantly in communication with her, because I can't do those things. I'm not good with the technology, although I must say that I've learned a lot since the book was published, and and I've come a long way. Um, but I think, and I was writing to her off and on all weekend, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, for gosh sakes, Nan, she's got 3 kids, a 3-year-old, I think a 5 and a 7 and a 9, boys. She homeschools, lives in Utah, and she was getting everything done. Amy, I don't know how to do this, or can you do that, or and she was doing it. And then I wondered, wow, what have I put her through again because of my own lack? And so that must have brought up those things. But there's something that, one of the things I talked about in the book was the shame that I felt going through my life with an eating disorder. Deep, deep shame. And 3 years ago, when I was able to move past it, that and live life for real. What you see is what you get. I thought I was leaving shame behind, but I do realize that, oh gosh, I better not start getting weepy. What I realize is that I still have shame that involves the things that I struggle with because of, and this is a clinical diagnosis, of ADHD that I've had since I was young. My report cards defined it, although it was never diagnosable until it began being studied, in the 70s. And I was born in 51, so they just thought I was a kid that couldn't hold still, couldn't shut up, wouldn't cooperate, wouldn't follow directions, couldn't do math, couldn't read well. You label, you get labeled, you label yourself anyway. And the ADHD, the dyslexia, have left me not being able to do certain things, and not in a linear way. I still, all the time, catch myself doing a thing. A little thing will pop into my mind, and I will drop that thing and walk over and do the thing that popped in my mind. That's part of the ADHD thing. And sometimes I'll say, no, Nan, stay. Just stay and get to it later. But sometimes I'll let myself free flow. And it's kind of interesting because I'll always get things done. I'm not living in chaos. I'm not a hoarder. I'm not, my home is rather coordinated and very neat. But I have these, what I call secrets, and the secrets are what I get my shame from. And this brought up some of that. And one of the things, and I even thought to myself, oh gosh, Nan, get over it. For gosh sakes, when you consider what's going on in the world right now with the additional illness and death from the COVID variant, and the Delta variant and things. This is nothing, but I'm just relating a thing to you. I'm telling you a story. Um, One of the things that bothers me a lot, this is so stupid, but I'm going to say it because it was brought up to me a while ago. My husband actually made a comment. He's a CPA and attorney, and he has that kind of a mind. You know, if there's a box with a bunch of grids in the box, everything in his mind fits in one of those grids, and it's easy for him to think that way. I, my mind wouldn't fit into that box. It it swirls. So very different. And one day he said something about, God, what a damn mess. And what he was talking about was, I'll use an example, but this is probably one of the biggest things that bother me. I think I'll send you a picture, and you're going to think, if you don't hear this video, you're going to wonder what the picture is about. But it doesn't even look like a big deal, but it's an example of what I have a terrible time with. And I'll it has to do with recipes. And that's silly. But I'll tell you a little bit more about where that's coming from. When I was 10 years old, Dad left when we were, 2, 3, and 4. And my mother raised us alone and had a terrible time doing it. One of the things that we always lived in apartments, almost always, and I used to go dumpster diving because in apartments they're big dumpsters. And I would go 10 years old, 9, 10, 11. I would go dumpster diving for magazines. And in the magazines and newspapers would have the little sections for this. You'd find recipes. And even back then, I would dumpster dive for recipes, go home, cut them out, had boxes of recipes. And I started babysitting when I was young, when I was 10 years old. And I loved cooking at the home while I was, children would be in nap or in bed, and I would experiment with things. And the people that hired me just loved this because they'd come home to cookies or something that I experimented with. And so that tells you that that's been something that has been on my mind for a long time. Even now, I can't not. I can say to myself, see, if I were controllable, I would say to myself when I come across an interesting recipe, and there's no end to interesting recipes. And if you think about it, just about anything that you subscribe to that has to do with food and health has recipes. Every magazine in every store, those little giveaways at the health store, all of those have recipes. And I'll look at something and I'll see a sauce that I like, a combination of ingredients I'd never thought of before, a new way of doing a thing, a new food I know nothing about. And I'll tear out the recipe and think to myself, but man, you're not going to make this. But that's not true, because I had a big pile of them that had to do sushi. And one day I decided I'm going to do sushi, and went back after 6 months of having my sushi making equipment that I got from Amazon, went back and made sushi and did a video on it. So yeah, I do those things. But my pile of recipes must have 200 pieces of paper in it. And I had my husband's, second husband's daughter, older daughter, showed me how I can take a picture with my phone and airdrop it to my Mac and put it into a recipe file. And she said, you can do this. And she really had a lot invested time-wise into showing me what to do. I can't do it. I just can't. It's just too much. Plus I liked having the piece of paper in my hand. So I've got all these recipes that none of this means anything to you, but what I'm trying to say is it doesn't even matter what the problem was. I spent a couple of hours yesterday basically trying to destroy my peace of mind by thinking of all of the things, including my pile of recipes that I couldn't get on top of, that I wasn't good enough for. And it was becoming, as I said, almost manic. And I went back to sleep, or back to bed at about 4. Got up at about 2:15 or so and went back to 4 at about 4. My husband had just gotten up to use the restroom, came back and he said, "Where were you?" And I started crying. I mean, and I'm thinking, "Nan, what the heck's wrong with you?" And said, I couldn't sleep. And he said, "What were you thinking?" Or he said, "Just thinking of whatever." And I said, "No." And then I started blubbering. "I can't do anything right." I mean, I was deep in a garbage pail. Okay, doesn't matter whether that's right or wrong or silly or about recipes or about, some kind of a much more relevant subject. I had to stop it because I needed to get to sleep, and I used a tool that I wanted to share with you, and this may not resonate with you. I don't know. Um, I'll give you some background to that. If you've read my book, you know this. I was married 40 years, got married, met him at 18, married him at 19. He had just come out of Vietnam, big, tall, good-looking Marine, and had been wounded, a head wound. And we were married for 40 years. He died of esophageal cancer. Um, what was he, 63? I was 59. And so from the time I was young, 18, to when he died, he was this rock that I could always count on. He never judged me. He always encouraged me to do things, and I flourished under him, under his love. And so when he passed, I didn't know who I was. It took me a while to figure it out. My son had moved to India, Mumbai, had just had a child, so after the memorial I went there for a couple of months and helped them with their home and just doing things while before the baby was born and some afterwards. But then I went on in the next year and a half to visit 15 countries in 15 months, kind of running, but also kind of seeing what the world thought of me so I could know what I thought of myself, and to see what I could handle, see what I could do, see what I could learn, see what I could do with it. And one of the things that I did was spent a month in a yoga institute in what they call Santa Cruz, which was a suburb of Mumbai, and got a lot of training and a lot of helpful, because yoga is about mind, body, spirit, grounding. And then I came back here, and there was a Ayurvedic retreat in Florida that I went to, Gainesville, Florida, and spent a couple of weeks there. And I learned something there, and this is what all of this chatter is about. Regardless, again, of how valid or relevant what I'm saying is, if you find yourself in a situation where you are immersed in self-doubt or degradation, self-degradation, questioning, doubting, getting in your own way of forward progress, because none of those things are going to get you where you want to go. Our mind doesn't know, and this is physiological, and it's true. Our mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. Our subconscious cannot tell the difference. If we tell ourselves a thing too often, we will believe it and quite often become it. You can't spend a lot of time in the visualization and the verbalization of your own shortcomings, or you will be paralyzed by them. And I know that, and that's why I was very surprised at what I was allowing myself to do, and I was determined to get out of it, but I seemed to have to deal with it for a while. I went downstairs and I tried to do something with my recipes, and I couldn't, and I gave up. And then I just pulled out, because this always calms me down, pulled out a new cookbook that I just got. I can cook vegan. By, I don't even know her first name. The last name is Moskowitz, and I started reading it because she did it in a almost a textbook fashion with these remarkable recipes, and that calmed me down. Anyway, so when I went to bed, I put into practice what I learned at the Ayurvedic retreat, and it goes back to to yoga. It goes back um, to taking control of where you want to go mentally by doing something that's a process. And this is what I was taught to do, because by the time I went there, it was about, uh, it was a little less than a year after Bob died. That was my first husband. And I was still searching. And I was still really unsure of what I could do on my own and where this was all going and who I was. And the person that was there, she was actually a psychologist who is also immersed in yoga, who is also immersed in, I'll call it spiritual practice. And this has nothing to do with religion. It could be applied to anything. And what she taught me to do, and I ended up doing it, and this was 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and I still do it. But it got me through a lot of times, and I've done it less sometimes and more other times. There was a time I did it every day, several times a day, but it got me through last night, and I was able to go back to sleep and sleep several more hours, and restfully, and I woke up kind of, well slept, but still realizing that I had gotten into a bad place, and they're very grateful that I'd gotten myself out of it again. And it sounds something like this, because she just had me repeat it after her. She said, it went like this. If I was teaching it to you, I'd say it after me. Powers that be, please hear me. Now, depending on what you believe, it could be God, please hear me. Allah, please hear me. The universe, please hear me. Powers that be, please hear me. Thank you for. And then recite the things that we are grateful for. I'm so grateful for my son, who is now 44, almost 44, and his beautiful family with my two grandsons, 7 and 10, almost 8 and 11, and his beautiful wife. And I'm grateful for my two brothers who are still alive and doing well, even though one was told he wouldn't make it for 5 years, 15 years ago, because of a rare lymphoma that he has. And I'm grateful for this world and the planet and the beauty. And it can go on and on. That's a very calming, beautiful way to let your mind go. But then it comes to this sentence. It is written that I am one with the universe. And it could be that I am one with God, that I am one with the powers that be, that I am one with the universe. But that's the next statement. It is written that I am one with the universe. That I am. And that's when the important work begins. That's when we begin to recite, and you could do this on paper, that we begin to recite everything about ourselves that is or can be a strength. That I am grounded, that I am intelligent, that I am creative, that I am resourceful, rather than being ashamed of my ADHD and this kind of a spider web of a brain I have, that if people had any idea how hard some things are for me to do, they would think I was retarded. But I'm resourceful, and I have learned to do really well things that lead one to think I'm quite accomplished, rather than examining the things that somebody else has to do for me. And and then you just keep going. And let that list be very long. Think of everything and anything you want. I look great in pink. I make people laugh. I am, and I didn't wear pink, and I don't usually look good in pink, so I'm not saying that about me. Now I'm extending to you that baton to take it and run with it. It could be 5 things, it could be 50, it could be 100. Just let it keep going. And by the time you're done, and you can take it a little further, this is, remember, your brain, your mind, your subconscious doesn't know the difference. If you do this as a mantra, and you do it often, you do it again and again, you do it regularly, you do it with the same reciting of accolades. And it's not just accolades, it's truthisms. It's who and what you are that make you special and beautiful and unique and lovable. And then you can take it even further than that. When I was ready for another partner, I knew it. I knew I loved being married. I'd been married for 40 years and I loved having a partner, and I wanted a new partner. Now this sounds ooh, but it's true. I recited, and I am going to find another partner, and he is going to be, and I recited who and what that partner was, what his attributes would be, what his skills would be. And you know what? The man I met and the man I ultimately married, and we've been married now almost 9 years. Bob died almost 11 years ago. Well, no, more than 11 years ago. Was that man that I recited the attributes of. Again, we put out there, and some people don't believe this, but I do. We put out there as energy, our thoughts are energy. We put out there in the universe things that once we do, amazing things happen. If you've read the book The Secret, some people don't like that book, some people like it, but the whole point is that there's a law of attraction, and that what you put out there and you put your mind on, you will attract what you need to make it happen. And I thought this would be a good thing to share today, because I, again, was surprised that I could get into such a dark place kind of out of nowhere, that it actually worried me because it was so all-encompassing. I mean, the worrying and the whirling and the negativity and the self-doubt and the mean thoughts about, no, not mean, just the list of all of the things that I was terrible at and made me feel so small, surprised me. Where did that come from? Why would I do that? So that's all I have to say. Take this skill. Take this mantra. Powers that be, please hear me. It's written that I am one with whatever it is, the universe. And then recite the assets, who you are, what you have of value, where you're going with it, and what you're looking for in your future, or who you're looking for in your future. And it's one of the strongest recommendations that I have. And I'm surprised I didn't do that before I got up. I just didn't know how dark of a hole I had let myself fall into. So that's all I have to say. I hope I haven't wasted your time. I hope you're having a good day, because I know I am. If you're on, I'm looking here at my screen on my computer, and there's no comments, there's nobody on. What I tend to do is find find that whatever was happening, I can find on my phone. So I'll go and do that. Or when I stop, suddenly I'll see comments, but I see no comments at all. Okay. Uh, Thank you for listening. Have a great day, because I know I'm going to. And I will be doing my Facebook Live usually 30 minutes or less, sometimes a little more, sometimes a lot less, on Tuesdays now, Tuesday at 1:30. And thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.